Welcome to our Thursday morning Parsha Shir. Today's Shir is sponsored by the Kohen Gadol, by Mr. Zoli Langer. Reb Chaim Yisrael Mordechai, Reb Aaron HaKohen, and his wife Eva are sponsoring today's Shir. It's Le'ilu Nishmas, his family members who perished in the Holocaust. His sisters Rivka, Pesel, Henshia, Sarah Fagel, and his brother Shlomo Eliyahu, all the son and daughters of Aaron HaKohen, and Le'ilu Nishmas, his mother, Chaya Bas Yisrael Mordechai, may their neshamas have an aliyah. The Kohen Gadol, Mr. Langer, observes yahrzeit for them every year on the 14th of Sivan, which is actually on Shabbos, because that is the day that they all arrived in Auschwitz. May Hashem avenge their blood and grant their neshamas an aliyah, and only brachas and simchas for the Kohen Gadol of Los Angeles and his entire family. Okay, thank you for being with us. So today I want to share with you a beautiful Hasidic story, a story that really has a special place in my heart. I love the story very much. The story is about a Hasidic Rebbe. They called him the Chorkova Rebbe. Maybe some of you have heard of him. The Chorkova Rebbe ended up together with many other Jews during the First World War in Austria, where Jews fled to escape the anti-Semitism, to escape the war, of course, and together actually with many other refugees. For a while they were there in Austria. Now, at some point, Austria itself gets drafted into the war, and they start pulling people off the streets to pull them into the army. Without discriminating, of course, everybody. And Jews find themselves in position where they're being drafted to the Austrian army to participate in the war. Now, for a Jew to be in the army in Austria during the First World War was sakonas nefashos mamash. It was mamash, life and death. It was a life-threatening experience. First of all, there was obviously the war itself. I mean, the war itself was incredibly dangerous, and many millions of people died. Besides for that, to be a Jew in any army, and in the Austrian army during the First World War, even besides for the bullets that were coming from the enemy, even just to be in an army itself was not a good environment for a Jew. There was tremendous amounts of anti-Semitism. Any Jew who was drafted into the army was, as they say in French, africhte ketzoris. He had real problems. So when the Jews would get drafted, they would daven to Hashem that somehow they should be released from the draft. Now, the Chorkova Rebbe, who was in Austria at the time, has Hasidim who are there with him. And as the Hasidim get drafted to the war, they come to their Rebbe and they ask him for a bracha that they should be exempt from the war, that they should be let off, from the army. And the Chorkova Rebbe benches them one after the next. Hashem should bless them, they should be let out. They shouldn't have to go fight. And being a great tzaddik, his brachas are fulfilled. Word spreads far and wide that there's a great Rebbe in town. Whoever he benches, whoever he blesses that they should be exempt from the army is exempt. And so the Jews start coming in droves. Whenever a Jew is drafted, he goes running to the Rebbe, Rebbe, help! Help me that I should get out of the war. It became so public, it became so well known that word reached the Austrian government that there was this Rebbe who was blessing Jews and blessing people, that they should be exempt from the army, and that his brachas were being fulfilled. And so the Austrian government decides that they're going to legally persecute this rabbi who is spiritually helping people get out of the army. But in order to do so, and in order to do so fairly, they have to first catch him, and they have to catch him red-handed. So they came up with the following plan. What they did was, they got a guy who was the kind of guy who could be well-trained. And for 6 months, or for however long it was, for a couple of months, they trained him on how to be a chassid. Now this, of course, is an Austrian goy that they found. But they trained him to look like a chassid. He grew his beard and his payas. They taught him Yiddish. They taught him the customs of Hasidim, how they act when they go to their rebbes, and things of that nature. The plan was that after this guy had taken training and learned to speak, walk, and talk like a chassid, he would go to the Charkova Rebbe and present himself as somebody who had been asked, who'd been drafted into the war, and was asking the Rebbe for a bracha to be released. This was the plan. And they carried out the plan exactly as they intended. The guy took his training, and he knew exactly what to do. He learned to stand and shakel and shul, holding the siddur the right way up. He learned that when you go in to see a Rebbe, you write a note, and that when you walk in, you hand the note to the Rebbe. He learned you give a couple of bucks, to the Rebbe. Let's not forget about that. And on the appointed day, he does everything he's supposed to. He shows up for his appointment. He hands the Rebbe the note. He hands him a couple of bucks. And in the note, he writes that he's been drafted to the war. And the Rebbe reads the note, and the Rebbe looks at him, and the Rebbe says to him, "How can I help you?" And the man, of course, who's been trained for this, he looks at the Charkova Rebbe, he says, "Rebbe, please," in Yiddish, of course, "Hob Rachmanis, please have some mercy on me. Bless me that I should not be drafted. Bless me that I should not be accepted into the Austrian army, so I shouldn't have to fight. It's dangerous. It's sakonas nefashos." So the Charkova Rebbe listens and listens, and when the guy's done, the Charkova Rebbe says to him, "Can I ask you for a favor?" He says, "Do you mind? Can you say that again? Whatever it is that you just said, can you repeat your plea? Can you repeat it? I'm having a hard time understanding what you're saying." And the man, who was a trained actor, becomes a little emotional. He says, "Rebbe, I know that this kind of request comes to you often. I need help. Please daven for me that I should not be accepted into the army. It's dangerous. I have a wife. I have children. I have a family that counts on me. This is dangerous business. Help me, please, Rebbe." And the Charkova Rebbe listens and listens. And when the guy finishes the second time, the Rebbe says to him, "Do me a favor," he says. "I need you to say it again. Give it to me again, one more time. What? What do you want?" And the guy says, "Rebbe, this is not a joke." And he breaks down and he cries. He's been well trained. He breaks down and he cries. He goes, "Rebbe, help me. This is serious. My wife, my family, my children. I'm going to lose my life. I'm going to die. The war, the army, anti-Semitism, pikuach nefashos." He gives everything he's got. And as he finishes telling his story for the third time, the Charkov Rebbe stands up, enraged, throws the guy out of his office. He says, "You traitor, you ungrateful, rotten human being. You want me to bless you, that you shouldn't have to fight in the Austrian army? Look how wonderful the country of Austria is to us Jews. Look how good they are to us. It's a zechus, it's a mitzvah. How dare you walk in here and ask me to bless you, that you should be exempt?" I'm a chutzif. He calls him names. He throws him out of his office like a dog. "Get out of here. Not sure what you were expecting, not sure what you were thinking." He says, "You've come to the wrong place if you think I'm going to help you get out of the army. Arois!" Right? Anybody ever have a teacher who ever said that to them? "Arois! Get out!" Throws him out. All right? Spy heads right back to the Austrian government and tells them that all charges against the Charkova Rebbe need to be immediately dropped. He is a patriot, and not just a patriot. He is an authentic, real supporter of the government. The government was so impressed, the story goes, that they actually sent a delegation to honor the Charkova Rebbe. Now think of this. One day, the Rebbe's sitting there in his beis medrash, in his shul. They look out the window and a whole delegation from the government is arriving. And what do you think the Hasidim thought when they saw a delegation coming? They thought the Rebbe was about to get arrested. Anyways, as they come in, they say to him, "We're here from the Austrian government to honor you. Being a loyal citizen and a loyal patriot to our country, and for encouraging people to go to the army. You should know we heard some bad rumors about you, but we verified them ourselves, and it turns out they're all false. And Charkova Rebbe, you are amazing." And they offer him, medals and medallions and certificates of honor, and they blessings upon his head. And they have some kind of session where they honor him, and they leave. as soon as they leave, the Hasidim surround the Chorkova Rebbe and they say, "Oh, Rebbe, we caught you." What happens? The Hasidic Rebbes would often claim in their humility that they didn't have Ruach HaKodesh, they didn't have any divine inspiration, they didn't know anything that anybody else doesn't know. They would often claim to just be regular people. And they said, Rebbe, we caught you an open Ruach HaKodesh, open prophecy. Here the government trained somebody to try to trick you, and he came in and you saw through it. Must be by the power of prophecy and divine inspiration that is upon you. And the Chorkov Rebbe says, I will tell you the truth. The truth is, he says, that I did not know that the person who came to see me was a spy. I didn't know. At least not at the beginning. But I will tell you what did happen. He said something strange happened. When this spy came to see me and poured his heart out before me, something strange happened that was a red flag. He says, I see many Jews. Many people come and see me, and most of them are pouring out their heart, telling me about all their tzoros and all their stuff. He says, sometimes I can help, many times I can't. But I've noticed, he says, I made an interesting observation. And that is that whenever people come to me, whether I can help them or not, I'm always deeply moved by their story. Their story affects me. Sometimes I break down when Jews tell me their tzoros. And he says, here a guy came to my office, poured out his heart with his tzoros and the difficulties that he was going through. And shocker, he says, I couldn't believe it. I felt nothing. So I made him repeat the story again and again. And after he repeated the story 3 times, and I wasn't moved, I didn't feel bad for him, I didn't feel any rachmanis, I didn't even feel emotionally connected to him at all. And he repeated it 3 times, and he cried. And I felt as unmoved as a stone. Chorkov Rebbe said, I knew he was a traitor. I knew he was a liar. I knew he was a scam artist. There's no way that a Jew in real tzoros would stand before me and repeat himself 3 times and I would be completely unmoved. So I knew he was a liar, and I figured out that he was a spy, and I threw him out of his office. It's not Ruach HaKodesh, he said. It's not prophecy. It's not divine inspiration. It's just human compassion. And of course, being good Hasidim, the Hasidim said, that's even greater than Nevuah. That's even greater than Ruach HaKodesh. All right, you know how Hasidim are. Okay, that's my story that I wanted to tell as an introduction to today's shir. I love the story because it's so deeply, authentically Hasidic, and gives us a bit of an insight, really, into what goes on in the hearts and minds of Rebbes and Hasidim. All right, this week's parsha is Parshas Nosai, the longest parsha, of course, in the Torah. If you have a Chumash in front of you, open up to the beginning of the 4th Aliyah, one of the longest Aliyahs in all of the Torah. Perek Hey, Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Leimer, says the Pasuk, Hashem spoke to Moshe. Daber al Bnei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people. V'amartu aleim, and you should say to them, Ish ish kisista ishtoi. Any man, if his wife shall go astray, umo'alo boy mo'al, and trespass, commit some type of an unfaithful act against him. And the Torah goes on to give us the mitzvah of soita, which of course we're all familiar with. The mitzvah, in short, is that a man is suspicious that his wife has committed adultery. He does not know if in fact she has or she has not. He doesn't know. But he is suspicious, so he warns her, excuse me, he warns her not to seclude, not to hide herself with a particular person, with a particular man, and she violates his warning, and she hides himself, she secludes herself with that man against whom she was warned not to hide herself, and 2 witnesses testify that she was there alone with him for a significant amount of time, and it's not known. That's the bottom line with Anisha Soita. It's not really known what happened when they were alone together. It's not known if she committed the sin or if she didn't commit the sin, But definitely it's very suspicious because her husband warned her, don't hide yourself with this man. And she hid herself anyways with that man for a significant amount of time. And two witnesses saw that she hid her, that she went into hiding with this man. And according to some opinions, he even has to warn her in front of witnesses. So this is referred to as an Isha Sait. All right, you're all familiar with the mitzvah. Bottom line, he would bring her to the Mishkan or to the Beis HaMikdash, and there she would be given a special cup of water to drink. The water contained primarily three ingredients. Number one, water from the kiyar. Number two, othar, dirt from the floor of the Mishkan or the Beis HaMikdash. And number three, the entire parsha of Saita, this entire section of the Torah was written, and it was erased into the water, and she would drink it. And the Torah says if she was guilty, she would perish, she would die a very horrible death. And if she was innocent, she would live and she would be blessed with all sorts of wonderful blessings, including beautiful, healthy children and many years of shalom bayis, her and her husband together for many years. All right, very famous mitzvah. Today, I want to reflect, just for a couple of minutes, on the first Rashi and the entire Parsha of Saita, and the entire Parsha Mitzvah of Saita, the very first Rashi. Again, if you have it in front of you, take a look. This is Perek Hey, Pasuk Yud Beis. Ish kisista ishtoi. A man, the Torah says, whose wife goes astray. Now, before Rashi actually goes into dissecting any aspects of the mitzvah itself, Rashi does something which actually is pretty common. And Rashi will address what we call smichos haparshiyos, which means the juxtaposition of the sections in the Torah. Why the Torah chooses to put this section, this mitzvah, right here. You have this in many places in Torah. Actually, in a little while from now, after the mitzvah of Saita, the Torah goes into the mitzvah of Nazir, and once again Rashi will explain very famously why Nazir and Saita are placed together. But here, Rashi explains the context of this mitzvah. I'm going to read it. It's a short Rashi. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to try to translate it, and then we'll discuss it. Ish kisista ishte, says Rashi, ma kosuv l'maylo min ha'inyan. What has the Torah written right before this? What is the thing the Torah had just written to us right before it gives us the mitzvah of Saita? Rashi quotes from the previous pasuk, pasuk Yud, the ish es kadoshav loy yihiyu. This refers to the mitzvah of a man, of a Jew, being obligated to give truma and meiser to a kohen. Again, we're not going to get into that, but truma and meiser to a kohen refers to different tzedakahs that were given by the farmers, by the Jews who harvested their crops, and were obligated to give X amount to kohanim, X amount to Leviim, etc. Ishes kadosh of lo yihiyu is a pasuk which refers to, on a simple level, it refers to a man who's giving truma and meiser. The simple meaning of the pasuk is that he can choose which kohen he wants to give his trumas and meisers to. No kohen can take it away from him by force. He gets to choose. Whichever kohen he chooses, this is who he gives it to. But Rashi is giving a homiletical interpretation of the words. Ishes kadosh of lo yihu, says Rashi, im ato ma'akev matnois kahuna. We can translate the words to be referring to somebody who doesn't give truma and meiser to a kohen. He knows he's supposed to. He knows he's obligated to, but he doesn't want to. Perhaps he's stingy. Perhaps he's impoverished. Whatever the case may be, he doesn't. Bottom line, he keeps lo yihiyu. He keeps the gifts that he's supposed to give to the kohen. Im ato ma'akev matnois kahuna. If you keep for yourself the gifts you're supposed to give to a kohen, chayecha, by your life I swear, says the Rebbeinu Shalom, says Hashem, shetitztarech lovoi etzloi lahavi lo yasasoita, that you will find yourself in position where you have no choice and you need the kohen. You'll have to go to him and bring him your wife, who is a soita. End of Rashi. Let's review. Rashi saying the Torah puts this mitzvah of Saita right after the mitzvah of Truma and Meiser to tell you that you have two options. Number one, Give the trumas and maasros to a kohen as you're supposed to. Go and meet the kohen on your terms to bring him truma and maaser. You get to choose which one, but you don't get to choose if you go or not. If you don't bring your trumas and maasros to a kohen, says the Rabbeinu Shalom, next comes the mitzvah of soita, which a man brings his own wife to the Beis HaMikdash and to the kohen, because he hadn't brought his trumas and maasros to a kohen. Now, says Hashem, I swear by your life, you're going to have to go to the kohen anyways to bring him your wife who's a saita. It's kind of like how parents used to discipline once upon a time. And if they found themselves in a position where their children were crying for nothing, they would say to their kids, if you don't stop crying for nothing, I'm going to give you something to cry about. So it's a similar thing where Hashem says to the Jews, listen, you have to go to the kohen one way or the other. You're either going to go to bring him your trumas and maasros, or if you don't go to bring him your truma and maaser, chayecha, Hashem says, chayecha is an expression of an oath. Hashem says, I swear, by your life I swear, you're going to have to go to the kohen anyways. For what? I'm not bringing him trumas and maasros. You're going to have to bring him your wife. You're going to have to bring him your wife as a saita. All right, the source of this Rashi is from a Gemara Masechta Brachos, where the Gemara basically says, Rashi basically quotes the Gemara. Now, to say that this is a strange Rashi would be an understatement. And to say that the Rabbeinu Shalom seems to be administering here a punishment that doesn't seem to fit the crime would also be an understatement. What in heaven's name are we really actually saying? Let's think about this for a second. I fear that sometimes we sort of rush through these Rashis, we gloss over them so quickly, we don't even bother to think for a second. The reason why the Torah puts these two parshias together is because the consequence of you not giving truma and maaser to a kohen is that you'll suspect your wife of cheating on you. You'll warn her to not hide herself with a man. She'll hide herself with that man that you warned her against. 2 witnesses will see her. You'll have to bring her to the Beis HaMikdash. If she's guilty, to drink the Saita water. If she's guilty, she'll die a horrible death. And if she's innocent, she'll be blessed with tremendous brachas. And all of that because I didn't bring Truma and Maaser to a kohen. Why? What's the connection? What's going on here? Yes, it's true, a person should give Truma and Maaser to a kohen. You want to tell me if a person, like Rashi writes here actually previously, that if a person doesn't give Truma and Maaser to a kohen, so then, in heaven, they will give him some kind of financial consequence for this, right? Rashi brings from a medrash that if you don't give Maaser where you're supposed to, in the end, as a consequence, you'll end up making 10% of what you were making before. It's like you'll become the kohen, so to speak. All right, seems harsh, but at least it seems commensurate in some degree. This seems like this seems disconnected. It seems extreme. It seems cruel, and frankly, it seems barbaric. Just think let's just chew on this just for 30 more seconds. What's Rashi saying? It's like Hashem is wagging his finger, right? You should have given the Truma Maaser to a kohen. Now you didn't. Now I'm going to blow up your family. And look, your wife is going to become a Saita. And if she's guilty, she's going to die a horrible death in the Beis HaMikdash. And even if she's innocent, in which case she's received tremendous brachas, she'll still be humiliated in public in the Beis HaMikdash, where they tear her garments and remove her head covering. And everybody has to know about this. And this is even before we get into the discord and the lack of humility. I mean, what is going on could you imagine what's going on in a marriage by the time the guy presents his wife to the Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash and tells them, I warned her not to hide with so-and-so. She did, and 2 witnesses saw her. How in heaven's name is this justified? Just because a man doesn't give Trumas and Maasros to a kohen. All right. I saw a couple of interesting explanations. Some of them seem downright cute. I don't mean that disrespectfully, of course. Some of them seem kind of cute. In fact, I read somebody writes. I saw this on the internet, not in the Sefer. So I have to quote my source. This one I found through Google. Somebody writes like this: that the Torah says that Hashem, the first woman, was made from Adam Rishon, right? So the Torah says that Hashem took a tselah. A tselah can be translated as a rib or as a side of Adam Rishon, and made from that Chava, the first woman. So one of the commentaries write that the gematria of the word tselah is 190. That's the part of Adam Rishon that Hashem used to fashion the first woman. Tselah is 190, and the word Chava is 19. So 19 is 10% of Tselah. So a woman is, so the Torah is saying, you should have brought Meiser, you should have brought 10%, right, to the Kohen, to the Kohen, but you didn't. Now you're going to have to bring 10%. Now you're going to have to bring Chava. Now you're going to have to bring your Chava represents the first wife, which is like 10% of you, because it comes from the Tzelah, which is 190, and Chava is 19, which is 10% of Tzelah, 190. All right, very cute. There must be more to it than that. Another cute explanation that I saw, the Gemara said, this one actually from the Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer says that according to the Gemara, there's two ways for a person to become rich, right? Men, listen up. There's two ways for a man to become rich. One is through giving tzedakah, specifically through giving meiser. Aser b'shvil shetis asher. Give meiser so you'll become rich. That's one way. The other way is through honoring your wife. The Gemara says, "Kabdu n'shaysaychu," honor your wives and you'll become wealthy. So the Chassam Sofer says, and when the Gemara says honor your wife, it refers specifically to buying her clothing. Chassam Sofer writes, men, don't complain when your wife racks up a credit card bill for buying clothes. This is going to make you rich, the Gemara says. All right, says the Chassam Sofer. No, so you got two ways. The Torah says about two things will make you rich: giving meiser and buying and honoring your wife. So this guy, says the Chassam Sofer, who doesn't want to give trumas and meisers, he wants to become rich only through honoring his wife. So he buys his wife a tremendous amount of garments, a tremendous amount of accessories, and because she adorns herself so, she ends up becoming a saita. All right. Also, again, a cute explanation. But clearly, we're missing some depth here. So, what is the significance of this? Again, what is the connection between saying a man doesn't give truma and meiser to a kohen, and he ends up with a woman who's a saita? Okay. To explain this, I think we need to go actually to the last Rashi in the Parsha of Saita. So again, if you have the Chumash in front of you, turn to same Perek Hey, Posuk Lamed Aleph, all the way at the end. After the Torah has concluded telling us the whole story of how it works with the Saita, the sacrifices that she brought, the oath that she made, the curse that she accepted upon herself, the consequences one way or the other, the Torah concludes with the words, Posuk Lamed Aleph, V'nika ha'ish me'avoin, v'ha'isha hahi tiso es avoina. V'nika ha'ish me'avoin, the man is cleansed of sin. V'ha'isha hahi tiso es avoina, and the woman bears her sin. The man is cleansed of sin, and the woman bears her sin. Now, what in heaven's name does that mean? When we say that the man is cleansed of sin, what sin? The man didn't sin here. This is a story about a woman who's suspected of being unfaithful. So Rashi gives two explanations. Rashi says, number one, if the experience does end up in the woman's demise, the man should not feel guilty, he should not blame himself. In Botkua Amayim, if the water took her life, Al Yidag Loimar Chavti B'misosta, the man shouldn't say, I'm liable for her life. The man should know he's done the right thing, even if it cost her life. The man should know, the man should rest assured that he did the right thing. The Varachar, another explanation, says Rashi, if the woman drinks the water and she is innocent, so then after that he may resume life with her intimately as regular husband and wife. Vaniko Ishmei Ovain means it's now he's cleansed of sin, meaning he may now live with her normally as husband and wife, as long as she was a soita, as long as she was suspected. He may not live with her as husband and wife. Once the experience is over, then he may. Okay. These are two explanations that Rashi gives. The Gemara gives a third interpretation, which is fascinating. The Gemara says, "V'nika ha'ishmei ovain," the last words in the entire parsha. The Torah is adding a caveat all the way at the end, like a good contract that right at the end has something written in small script. The Torah is adding something right at the end and making the entire thing conditional. And the Torah says you should know that all of this, the whole thing, the whole story with the soita and the water and the drinking and the consequences one way or the other, only works if, capital I, capital F, if v'nika ha'ishmei ovain, if the man is in fact innocent of sin. If the man himself does not have anything in his past, if he doesn't have anything in his history where he himself has strayed in one way or the other intimately. Even the Gemara says, even if he was with his own wife at a time when she was an arusa, meaning before the marriage was completed, although she was already halachic, they were already halachically married, but not yet nisuin, etc., and they were intimate then, even so, because he has a blemish in his own track record, the waters of the Soita are not going to work on the woman. The Nika ha'ishmei ovain, the Torah says it only imo ishmenuka me'ovain. If the man in fact is innocent, if he himself is squeaky clean, then it works. If not, it doesn't. Okay. Now, when you study that passage in Gemara, you say to yourself, okay, that actually makes sense. What the Torah is basically saying is, you want to drag your wife to the Beis HaMikdash, you want to give her a cup of water to drink because you're suspicious of her. Right before you do, the Kohen is going to whisper into your ear and say, hey, buddy, just a quick gut check and just making sure that you are 100% in the clear, right? You're getting audited now by the IRS, just to make sure you're 100% in the clear. Because if you're not, and you're dragging your wife into the Mishkan, into the Beis HaMikdash with suspicions on her, nothing here is going to work. In fact, you're going to end up looking like a fool. And your wife, who may in fact be actually guilty of a much more grievous sin than you, will walk away. And you'll look like the paranoid, controlling, unrelenting husband. If you're innocent, if you've done nothing, if you've never inappropriately committed any act on an intimate level, even with your own wife, you're good. Otherwise, don't proceed. Now that makes a lot of sense, right? On a deeper level, what the Kohanim are telling him is, if you yourself have unresolved issues, we don't even trust your judgment on your wife. Where this gets confusing, where we are forced to dig deeper into our understanding of this, is in an opening statement of the Gemara in Masechta Soita. The Gemara says on the first page, Reish Lakish said, specifically when it comes to expounding the story and the mitzvah of Soita, that every person is given a shidduch, listen to this, lefi ma'asav, based on his actions, based on what he deserves. Reish Lakish taught, look at your wife, look at your husband, and just remember that the Ribbono Shel Olam orchestrated this shidduch, gave you the spouse that you are deserving of based on your actions. Rashi says in the Gemara, quote, Tznuah le'tzadik, prutza le'rosha. Tznuah, a modest woman, goes to a tzaddik. Prutza, an immodest woman, is given to a Rasha. That's how Reish Lakish, the Gemara says, would start expounding the Masechta of Soita. I just want to add parenthetically The fact that it is Reish Lakish himself who teaches this, to me, is astounding. Because if you'll remember, the Gemara says that Reish Lakish had his own fascinating story when it came to his shidduch, right? Remember this? Who was Reish Lakish's shadchan? Reish Lakish's shadchan was Rabbi Yochanan. Where were they when they read the shidduch? What happened? Rabbi Yochanan was bathing in the Yarden, in the Jordan River. Reish Lakish was a highway robber. Reish Lakish saw Rabbi Yochanan, he jumped over the river. He thought Reish Lakish was a woman. When Reish Lakish realized who Rabbi Yochanan was, and Rabbi Yochanan realized that Reish Lakish had just almost borderline attacked him, Rabbi Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, such strength like you have belongs to Torah. And Reish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, such beauty like you have belongs to women. And on the spot, Rabbi Yochanan said to him, if you do tshuva, I'll marry you to my sister, who is more beautiful than I. And Reish Lakish accepted. And he agrees to become a Baal Tshuva, and Rabbi Yochanan agrees for him to marry his sister. And this is the same Reish Lakish, I'm saying this parenthetically, but this is the same Reish Lakish who says that you should know your shidduch is lefi ma'asav. It's basically his way of saying you get what you deserve. And he's saying this as an introduction to the Parsha of Soita, which means he's basically saying, if you find yourself in a situation where your wife is a Soita, and you have all these sorts of challenges in your own marriage, then you should know that this is reflective of you. Hashem would not have orchestrated a shidduch between a woman like this and a man like you if you were in fact as innocent or as holy as you thought. All right. So apparently, although we say v'nika ho'ish me'yovein, which means the man may not have any sins, he obviously can't be completely innocent, because Reish Lakish says then he wouldn't deserve to be married to a woman who's a soita. The Gemara goes on to ask how this fits with the idea that 40 days before a person is born, they're already announcing their shidduch in heaven. And the Gemara gives the famous answer: there's a first marriage and there's a second marriage. And of course, the commentaries discuss what really is the first marriage and what really does the first marriage mean and second marriage mean. I don't want to get into that now. Suffice it to say that Reish Lakish is teaching us that the person who is bringing his wife to the Beis HaMikdash as a Soita is obviously not as innocent as he claims or as he thinks he is. And he should know that the woman that he has is lefi ma'asav, is according to his actions. Now, he must have done some kind of sin. He must have done something in order to end up in a situation like this. What exactly did he do? Well, he didn't sin intimately, because then it doesn't work. Concludes the Chassam Sofer in a second interpretation. What is it that he did? He obviously didn't give the presents, the matnos kona. He obviously didn't give appropriately the things for a kohen and for a levi that they deserved, trumas and maisos. He didn't give them what he was supposed to, and so because of that, he is blemished and flawed in his own right, and therefore he, so to speak, deserves to have a woman, to have a wife, to have a woman who, be married to a woman who is a soita in a situation like this. Okay. I want to try to explain what it is that's going on here. You see, it turns out, my friends, that the judgment we have on people, the perspective that we have on people, the way we interpret what people do, has more to do with us than with them. The truth is, we don't really know what's going on in someone else's mind and in someone else's heart. Even very often, if we're married to them, we may have a sense, but we don't really know. We don't truly know, unless they tell us. And even if they tell us, it's up to them to determine how much they tell us. You can spend years and years of your life with somebody. You can have multiple conversations with them, share many, many experiences with them, and not know profound things about them, because they never tell you. Or even if they do tell you, the extent, the impact of what they're saying may be lost on you. And so the way we view the world, in the end, really, is about the glasses that we have on our eyes and nose. And so Reish Lakish is teaching us that if a man is married to a woman who's a soita, he should know that his shidduch is lefi maisav, meaning you deserve it. There's something about this that you're going through that has been ascertained, that has been brought, that has been collaborated by Hashem. It's the Gemara's way of teaching us one of the greatest pieces of Torah wisdom, and it is this: no matter what you go through in life, no matter what you experience, no matter what happens, no matter how sure you are that you can see that there's somebody in your life, even somebody close to you, who is committing a grievous act against you, before you judge others, you need to take an account and a reckoning within yourself. Ask yourself, where is it that where have I gone wrong here? Hashem would never have brought this into my life if there's nothing for me to improve about myself on it. In the words of the Charkova Rebbe, right? Every time somebody brings me tzoros, I feel their pain. If I can't help them, but I feel their pain within myself. Everything that a person goes through, they need to first and foremost look within themselves. There's something that I need to learn from this. There's an area here where I need to grow and become a bigger and better person because of what I'm going through. And here, the Yerushalmi says something that the commentaries quote from the Yerushalmi, something wild. The Yerushalmi says, actually, a man really should not go through the soita process with his wife. He really should not do it. In fact, the Gemara also, the Bavli also quotes it. Hamakane, the Gemara says, it's a b'diavad. Really, ideally, a person should not go through this process. Really, says the Yerushalmi. So then what should a person do if a person is suspicious of his wife, that stuff is going on? Simple, says the Yerushalmi. Get divorced. I'm not making it up. It's what the Yerushalmi says. You find yourself in a situation where you're suspicious of your wife and there's stuff going on, divorce her. That says, listen to these words. How can the Gemara do that? Advocate for divorce? Says the Gemara, I'm not advocating for divorce, but divorce is preferable to living with a woman in a toxic relationship. Now, does the Yerushalmi mean that in all scenarios? Of course not. But in some scenarios, yes. In some scenarios, divorce is a preferable option. Rather than living with strife, rather than remaining in an abusive, toxic relationship, a person needs to know when to get out and when to stay in. Says the Talmud Yerushalmi, we turn to this man who's brought his wife to the Beis HaMikdash, and we say to him, actually, you have your own unresolved stuff. If you didn't, you would have ended this and you would have sorted it out one way or the other. You would know, I should be in or I should be out. This marriage is worthy of salvation, of salvaging or not. We're better off in it or we're better off without it. If you would have is the way I understand the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi is saying if you would have internal clarity within yourself, you would know how to apply it to your marriage. I want to be crystal clear about something. What is the Yerushalmi saying? That a person should never... does the Yerushalmi mean that every marriage should be perfect or they should get divorced? That if there's a difficult day, if stuff goes wrong, if there's challenges in one form or another, small or large, the couple should just get divorced? No, of course not. That's not what the Yerushalmi is saying. So what is the Yerushalmi saying? The Yerushalmi is saying a soita situation is a man who has no clarity. He's bringing his wife to the Beis HaMikdash. He doesn't know what to do with her. She did commit adultery. She didn't commit adultery. He doesn't know. He doesn't have his own house in order. He's living in a fog. Says the Yerushalmi, if you're living in a fog, if there's confusion everywhere around you, you don't know what's going on in your own marriage, here's a hint, says the Yerushalmi. Stop pointing fingers at your wife. Take a look in the mirror. A shidduch for a person is given lefi ma'asav based on your own actions. It's here to challenge you. If there's confusion around you, if there's chaos in your life around you, if there's stuff in your home, in your family, in your marriage, with your children, in your business, if there's stuff around you that isn't functioning well, says the Yerushalmi, take a look in yourself. What we tend to do when there's stuff inside ourselves that we're not ready to face, deal with, and process, what we tend to do is we tend to manifest it on others. You know what it's kind of like? It's kind of like when people have back pain, right? Rahman al-Islam, may Hashem protect us. When people have back pain, and sometimes they go to doctors and to chiropractors and they tell them, your back is fine. There's nothing wrong with your back. There's a theory out there that actually the reason why sometimes we have back pain is because the mind will project our psychological and emotional unresolved issues onto our backs. What we're feeling is not really inherently back pain, it's just unresolved emotional issues, trauma that we've been through in life, that we haven't dealt with. Then instead of processing honestly, instead of facing certain painful truths, the body and the mind brilliantly, in cahoots together, project the pain onto the back. And so the person walks around and goes, oh my God, my back hurts, my back hurts. You go for a massage, you feel better for 5 minutes, and then, oh my God, it hurts again. Why? Because the problem is not on your back. I believe this is the deeper meaning of what the Yerushalmi is saying. The Yerushalmi is saying, you, the man who's bringing his wife to the Beis HaMikdash, ask yourself, why is all of this happening around me? You have to know, is this my fault? Is this coming from me? Or is this coming from her? Am I the toxic one or is she the toxic one? If I'm the toxic one, then bringing her to the Beis HaMikdash is not going to help. But dragging her to the kohen and saying, fix her, can't fix her. She's not the problem. And if she is the problem, if it really is her, says the Yerushalmi, then why are you still with her? Do you know if your marriage could be repaired, if it can't? Do you have clarity? If not, go get clarity. The sooner you get internal clarity, the faster you'll be able to project that clarity around you as well. All right, let's conclude the Dvar Torah. Says Rashi, the Torah puts two parshas together. One parsha, a man who doesn't give trumas and maestras to a kohen. Another parsha, a man who brings his wife to a kohen because she is an isha soita. Says Rashi, the two go together. Had he gone to the kohen with his trumas and his maestras, he would not have to go to the kohen with his wife who's a soita. And because he didn't go to the kohen, now he has to bring his wife. Perhaps in this case, the kohen represents the man of God before whom there are no secrets. In the presence of truth, in the presence of a tzaddik, there is no bribery, there is no hypocrisy, there's no two-facedness. In the presence of a person who is themselves a spiritually integrated person, there's no falsehood. Bringing the trumas and maestras to the kohen, of course, doesn't just mean that we give the kohen money. Doesn't just mean we give them wheat, barley, grain. It means that as well. But obviously that's not all it means. The act of going to the kohen and bringing it to the kohen, it's a spiritual gut check. when we stand in front of the kohen, in front of a tzaddik, and we present it to them, it's a moment of internal honesty. It's a moment where we have to stand bare, truth. All right. The kohen will look at us and say, how are you? How are you faring? Are you studying Torah as a Jew should? Are you davening to Hashem as a Jew should? Are you fulfilling mitzvahs as a Jew should? It's a moment of honesty. Are you being a good husband as a Jew should? Sometimes we don't want that honesty. We don't want it. Honesty sometimes shines lights in places where we'd rather not go. Difficult. So we do what human beings do when we don't want to do something. We avoid. We don't go to the kohen. We procrastinate. We tell ourselves, we'll go tomorrow, we'll go next month, we'll go next year. We don't want to have to face it. It's difficult. And we end up not going to the kohen, which means not just that we don't give him gifts, it means we don't experience our own internal honesty. We're not looking truly into ourselves. Says the Torah, you're not being honest with yourself. You're not dealing with your own issues. You're going to develop back pain, so to speak. All of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, there'll be lack of harmony in your marriage. You turn around, there's stuff going on with your wife, with your husband. You're like, Rabbanu Shalom, I don't recognize my wife. I don't recognize my family. What is going on here? Says Rashi, simple. You have to go to a kohen. The same honesty there's a limit to how long you can run from yourself. Sooner or later, honesty will catch up with you. You're either going to go yourself with your money, right? For a man, there are a few things in the world that force us to be as honest as we have to be with money. You're either going to go with your money, or it's going to play out in your relationships, in your intimate relationships. And you're going to come confused to a kohen telling, I don't know what's going on with my wife. This explains something else, by the way. The Torah says, and if in fact she's innocent, they'll be blessed with children. Oh, and not just children, but beautiful children, anachas, and many happy, healthy years together. How innocent could she be? She violated his warning, right? She hid with a man she wasn't supposed to. How innocent can she be already? What's the answer? The answer is, they've gone to the kohen. They've had their moment of truth. She drank the water. He stood there and the kohen asked him. The kohen literally asked him, do you have sins in the past? Do you have stuff that you're running away from? Once people can be honest with themselves and with each other, in the vast majority of cases, almost any relationship can be repaired. The Torah says if she's innocent, if she hasn't sinned, then of course they'll be blessed with beautiful, healthy children. But they have to have that moment where they stand in front of the kohen. Chayecha, says Rashi, if you didn't go to the kohen with your grain, with your produce, you're going to have to go with your wife. I think what Rashi's saying on a deeper level is, if you're not going to deal with your own issues within yourself, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, if you're not going to deal with them within yourself, if you're not going to go to the kohen on your own, whatever it is that you're running away from is going to play out in your marriage. In your marriage, in your relationships with your children, in your relationship with other people. It's all going to play out over there. I conclude with my favorite mashal for this. A man comes home from work one day and he says to his wife, honey, I don't know what it is. Everybody I met today smelled terrible, a terrible odor coming from everybody I came in contact with. My boss, my coworkers, my manager, my clients, the people in the street, the people in the restaurant. Everywhere I went, everybody smells. And he says to her, in fact, now that I'm talking to you, you smell too. And she says to him, honey, you have a little piece of dirt in your mustache right underneath your nostril. There's a little piece of junk in your face. Wash your face. Take the dirt out of your mustache. All of a sudden, the world will smell like a beautiful garden of roses. Amachaya, nobody stinks anymore. In Rashi's words, go to the kohen with your money, and you won't have to go to the kohen with your wife. Go to the kohen yourself, and you won't have to go with others. Face yourself internally and honestly. Tell yourself, in the words of Reish Lakish, With the shidduch that I have, it's lefi ma'asav. Hashem has brought this to me, not just because I deserve this, but because this is my opportunity to grow and become a bigger and better person. And then you won't experience the discord around yourself. Internal peace will always lead to external peace. May Hashem bless us all with wonderful Shabbos and a wonderful month. And please God, only brachas and simchas for all the Yidden. Good Shabbos.